Hi and welcome to the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast for athletes, coaches and professionals who want to achieve their goals faster. I'm David Charlton and I'll be sharing proven methods from leading athletes, coaches and experts that will help you get the most from your talent. Today's show is sponsored by Functional Intelligent Training, who are a sports injury clinic located in Gosford near Newcastle upon Tyne and specialise in athlete development, nurturing future champions, strength and conditioning support and excellent rehabilitation services. A big welcome to episode 14 of Demystifying Mental Toughness. This time I'm going to be doing a short recap, a bite of mental toughness, where I make a range of observations looking at various different episodes with one common theme: mental preparation. My intention is to elaborate more on mental preparation, what it involves, visualization, what it is, how it's used, and the benefits of visualization. So firstly, let's consider some of the guests that we've had on the show so far and some of the challenges that they or the players have had to overcome. In an early episode, Steve Judge talked about trying to get into the optimal performance state before a race. You've got Chris Paisley. How do you play golf, or how do you compete in your sport when you're having a bad swing day? Toby Flood talked about playing for your national team in big, high-profile games. How do you focus on the right things? Brendan Pearson went on to talk about goalkeeping, possibly the hardest position on the football pitch, where if you make a mistake, you've got to be able to bounce back immediately because you're the last line of defence. Andy Paisley, we looked at swinging freely under pressure. And then recently we've got Alessia Bruno, who talks a lot about the yips and accidents, traumatic events, and the types of somatic physiological problems that can then go on to bring. These are all common problems that athletes bring to me on a regular basis. I'm now going to talk you through some strategies to be able to help yourself. So mental preparation, it starts with self-awareness. If you're more self-aware, then you're going to give yourself a much better chance when you're under pressure of overcoming some of these little things that I've mentioned. In my work, the philosophy I use is firstly to educate athletes that I work with, help them identify and understand what they do in different situations, how they behave, how they interact with other people, how they think, how they feel, at the best and at the worst. Then obviously you've got to practice. And this is where the mental preparation comes into it. You know, if you're in the gym and you want to bench press 100 kilos, but the first time you go in the gym and you can only bench press 40 kilos, how do you get there? It's practice, isn't it? You've got to go through the reps. You've got to practice certainly more than once a week. If you only do it once a week, then you're not going to be able to get to that 100 kilo mark. You've got to be doing it 4-5 times a week. And this is exactly the same with mental preparation. And then importantly, the vast majority of people will come to see me because they want to perform better under pressure in competitive events. A lot of people, most people, will actually perform quite well in practice. But when it comes to competition, they generally aren't doing it. So you need to be able to put into practice in competition some of the different things that are taught that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. So firstly, how do you enhance your self-awareness? I'd like you to ask that question to yourself. How do you enhance your self-awareness? So let's start with Toby Flood. He talked about playing big international games, matches in front of thousands of people and millions of viewers. He mentioned about being criticised by various different people, be it in the media, be it in social media. He talked about training poorly, reacting to results, struggling with certain skills. It doesn't matter whether you're an international rugby player like Toby or an athlete, a golfer, a footballer who's a motivated amateur athlete. We all have our challenges. We might not be able to execute a certain shot for a period of time or execute a certain pass. We might lose form for a bit. Often what happens is people start focusing on things that are out of their control instead of inside of their control. So they might focus on why their teammates are playing better than them, looking too closely at the opposition perhaps. If you're a golfer, fairways might get narrower because you're focusing on the trouble, trees, the rough. You might even start focusing on the fact that you've got a card in your hand. All of those things are completely out of your control. And when you spend too much time worrying on those factors, that's when you start losing perspective. You start telling yourself stories which shouldn't exist, but they do exist. And then when we talk about the word process, you lose all sight of what the actual process is, which leads us nicely to talk about mental preparation. So tip 1, how do you get back to the process? To focus on the things that are under your control. How do you heighten your self-awareness so you know actually what is under your control and what's out of your control? Well, it's pretty straightforward, and it's something I advise you to do on quite a regular basis. If you find your concentration's wavering, if you are getting distracted, get a pen out and a bit of paper out, and all you need to do is draw 2 columns. On the left hand side you can write under my control. On the right hand side you can write out of my control. At the top you'll put a little situation down there. So let's go with goal kicking, which is consistent with what I talked about with Toby. Goal kicking. What's out of your control? Well, you can't control the crowd. You can't control whether the opposition are giving you some verbals or trying to put you off in some sort of way. You can't control the weather condition. You can't control if you've missed the last kick. But what can you control? Your body language, your thinking, where you see the ball, your process, your routine. It sounds too simple to think that that exercise would actually help you, but it's amazing how easy it is to slip into bad habits and focus on the wrong things. So it's a nice little reminder to do that, to bring it back to your conscious awareness. Now for tip 2. In the previous bites of Mental Toughness, I've talked about ways to reflect, ways to take a step back and assess your performance, be that on a one-off basis or periodically. Toby mentioned in the interview about the support network, so your support team is vital. So I'd encourage anyone, especially athletes in individual sports, to really tap into your coaches and your coaching knowledge. Sometimes in team sports, coaches can be too busy to afford you the time to have those one-to-one conversations, or you might feel uncomfortable with those one-to-one conversations. So it's really important to have someone or some people around you to be able to listen to you, to understand you, and try to help you shift any doubts and really challenge the story that you're telling yourself. I'll give you an example. So a footballer I've worked with in the past, centre forward, he would miss his first 2-3 opportunities on goal and then all of a sudden start telling himself he was a terrible striker, terrible finisher. So unconsciously he would then hide. He wouldn't ask for the ball. He'd disappear from matches. He likely wouldn't have many more chances on goal. And that was nothing to do with the fact his technique was terrible or he was a poor striker. It was simply because he was telling himself the wrong story. His expectations and beliefs were completely out of line. You know, if you look at Messi or Ronaldo, they may have 10, 15, 20 shots on goal, yet they might only score 1 goal in a game. So they've missed the first 10, 11, 12, 13, 15 shots at goal. But they keep asking for the ball, they keep putting themselves in the positions, and they tell themselves a more helpful story. It's a little bit like the golfer who misses a short putt and then goes on to miss another short putt. They'll beat themselves up, criticise themselves. Yet if you look at PGA Tour stats, the best golfers miss short putts from time to time. If they have a bad game, they might miss more than 1 short putt in a row. But if you've got the mental toughness or resilience like a tiger, you'll tell yourself a more positive story. You won't expect the impossible. You'll focus on the process and then you'll quickly turn it around. And what you'll also do in your mental preparation is be brave, and you'll confront your fears, and that's something that some people find really, really difficult. Let's be honest, it is quite uncomfortable. It can be really, really uncomfortable to tell yourself that you're failing at something, that you're not good at something. It can be quite frightening at times, and that's where people can struggle. So simply acknowledging that is a strength and can be really, really helpful for you. And if you have to tap into support for that, so someone unpicks it that little bit deeper, can really, really unlock and propel you forward. So 2 tips so far for mental preparation have been A, bring to your conscious awareness what is under your control and what's not under your control, and B, ensure that you tap into some support. You speak to people that you trust who can question you, help shift your perspective to put you into a more positive, focused and confident mindset. And then thirdly, we're going to look at imagery now. So as some of the observations have come from Toby's episode, I'd like you now to try and put yourself in the shoes of a rugby player. You're standing 30 metres from the goal with the posts in front of you in the centre of the pitch. You're in a dynamic pose. Your hands are thrust out in front of you. Then you hear a coach speak to you. They tell you you're kicking to win the World Cup. So you close your eyes. You begin shifting your weight from side to side, moving backwards, then moving forwards, perhaps moving backwards and forwards. Then you start taking yourself through your process, your routine, what you need to do to execute that successful kick to win the World Cup in front of thousands of people in the packed stadium, millions of viewers on TVs all around the world. And you exhale and inhale forcefully. You imagine what you do with your hands, with your arms. You can hear a pin drop in the stadium, apart from the boos from the opponents in the crowd. You picture yourself focusing on a spot in the crowd, behind the goal, right in the middle of the posts. You feel the sensations, the muscles in your body that you're likely to use when you're kicking the ball. You taste the anticipation in the air as you're breathing slowly. You may even see your foot caressing the ball powerfully in a committed fashion and the ball powering through the posts. You hear the crowd celebrating. You see yourself celebrating with your teammates. It's quite a nice feeling, that is, isn't it? You would then relax your body and open your eyes on the pitch. So welcome to visualization or imagery if you're unfamiliar with it, which is highly unlikely because most sports people do imagine themselves executing shots or passes. They see themselves in different situations on a regular basis, sometimes in a positive light, sometimes in a not so positive light. So that's right, imagery, it's using your senses to recreate or create an experience in your mind. Research tells us that when you can engage in vivid imagery, the brain interprets these images as identical to the actual situation. So this is what makes imagery really, really powerful. So in the case of the goal kicker there, Toby, when you're imagining yourself trying to kick a goal and your brain starts interpreting those images, begins to fire the muscles in your legs as if you're actually kicking the ball. That's the power of imagery. So it goes on to allow rugby players and different athletes to practice sport skills, strategies, and mentally prepare without actually physically taxing yourself. And the great thing is, as Toby mentioned in his episode, the brain doesn't know whether you're actually physically training or mentally training. So again, that's the power of imagery. So athletes can recreate and create new experiences in your mind. Let's think about after a performance. Often you can get stuck where you keep replaying and replaying the bad shot, the mistake, the failure. And generally, you don't have a plan or a strategy to deal with that. That's one of the keys, one of the secrets to imagery. It can be done in a systematic and in a controlled way so that you can actually learn from mistakes, and then you can go on to reprogram your mind and your body so that when you do perform, you can do it to a high level. I mentioned earlier, you can go on to create new experiences in your mind too. If you're someone who likes YouTube as an athlete and you look at clips of opponents or inspiring, motivating images and videos of other athletes, you can then go on to visualize executing strategies and different skills in a whole manner of ways. So confidence is a huge part of mental toughness. That ability to see yourself performing a task under pressure, the ability to see yourself performing a task after you've made a mistake. By using imagery in a clever, systematic way, you're creating responses to questions. How will I respond in such a situation? What will it be like for me when I do drop a rick, when I do make a mistake? And then you can replay in your mind a more helpful way of going about things. So your imagery experience when you're working with a sports psychologist is going to be very different to when you're not trained at all in imagery. People might think of visualizing when they're dreaming, seeing themselves on a practice field, a training area, playing certain types of shots, different tasks, different passes. That's very random. It's not systematic, and there's no evidence to suggest that that type of imagery is actually going to enhance your performance. It must be done in an organised manner, and it can be done in small doses as well, similar to physical training. If you went out there and practice for hours and hours on end, and you're there in body but you're not there in spirit, then you're wasting your time. And that's similar to imagery. Small, sharp doses may well work for you. So that's right, systematic, repetitive, physical and mental practice clearly does pay off if you want to get better in your sport. And a real key to improving your confidence levels, to reducing performance anxiety, to increasing your motivation levels, your intensity levels, this can all be done in imagery. However, you must learn to be able to control your imagery. What I mean by that is controllability is the ability for athletes to imagine exactly what it is that they'd like to imagine, and then to manipulate different aspects of images that they wish to change. So perhaps you see yourself yipping a putt or choking when playing snooker, as Alessia Bruno discussed in episode 12, or being highly activated whilst doing that goal kick. The sports psychologist's role is then to help you effectively change the wiring in your brain so you can see yourself performing that task the way you'd like to perform it. You've also got vividness. Some athletes initially can really vividly see themselves passing a football or passing a rugby ball, doing various different skills. Some can't, and it's a skill that can be learned. It involves seeing the features of an object or a move in colour, in detail, trying to use as many senses as you possibly can, trying to recreate the emotional, the physical sensations that are engaged as you perform that skill. So again, this has to be done in a systematic way in order for you to get the best out of yourself. I'm going to take you through an exercise which highlights how powerful imagery can actually be. So supposing you don't have any injuries, especially with your back or hips or anything like that, you can definitely do this exercise, no doubt about it. So standing up with your feet around about shoulder width apart, I'd like you to place your right arm in front of you so it's parallel with the floor, so it's pointing straight ahead. And very simply, I'd like you to turn with your right hand to the right, turn around as far as you can possibly go. That's right, go as far as you possibly can go. It might be 180, it might be 270 degrees. When you've done that, make a note of a spot on a wall, or if you're outside, how far you actually got to. Now, what I'm going to do is, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. And this is where the fun begins. So again, you're in that position with your feet shoulder width apart. You've got your hand out stretched in front of you. And I'd like you to close your eyes. And I want you to imagine your hand and your arm, your upper body, very slowly moving round to your right. Don't move it at this stage. Just imagine you're going to do so. So you're imagining your hand moving to your right. You're imagining your body opening up, feeling the muscles in your body moving as you're seeing yourself turning without actually turning. You're telling yourself you can twist and turn 360 degrees. So you're turning in your mind 270, 300 degrees, 360. You can see and feel in your body now how great it feels to be able to turn that much. And I'd like you to go on and do it now. Open your eyes and then turn and twist as far as you possibly can do. And I bet you can do it more than you did the first time. I don't know anybody who hasn't. That's the power of visualization. Feel free to feed back to me if you weren't able to, but I'm going to be very, very surprised if you didn't. I'm hoping after doing that exercise that you are going to see how powerful visualization is. It's certainly something that I use with pretty much every athlete that I work with, and it's something that you can get better and better at, and it can only help the way that you perform. When we think of mental toughness, we've got the 4 C's. We've got commitment, we've got confidence, we've got control, and we've got challenge. In all of those aspects, you can use imagery to help yourself. So let's go with commitment. Often, people can get comfortable. They train or practice, even play at around about 60-70% of their capacity. What I do to help my athletes is put a program together, some audios, some MP3s to really ramp up those intensity levels. So you see yourself in the gym really pumping iron as hard as you can. You see yourself going through your routines when you hit that shot or pass the ball, when you put the tackles in, and it can be really helpful. Then if you consider confidence, confidence comes in lots of different forms, from the way you think, things you say to yourself, to your body language, to your rhythm and timing in your sport. And again, I'll put a series of audios to help people in that respect. Generally, they may include some affirmations as well to really increase their self-esteem and their belief in their ability. And affirmations are something that's used an awful lot in the military, where one false move means you're dead, so you can't afford any errors. Then we've got emotional control. Mentioned a little bit earlier, Brendan Pearson, the goalkeeper, how if a goalkeeper makes a mistake, imagery can be used to help you bounce back from that mistake. Again, considering your body language, the way you think, and various little cues, working on your breathing. Lastly, when we think about challenges that people are faced with, we talked about Chris Paisley and when he wasn't swinging at his best. Visualization there can be used so you see yourself at your best, swinging freely, with confidence, really getting into your process, into your pre-shot routine. And certainly the way I go about my work, when I'm working on a one-to-one basis, my athletes, they really get to experience imagery in lots of different ways to improve their performance. And I go on also to sell various different bespoke products to help individuals. So yeah, feel free if you've got any questions about visualization and imagery and how it can help you. Yeah, get in touch via social media, or you can email me at info@sport-excellence.co.uk. I hope you've enjoyed this bite of mental toughness. So there was 3 things there to help you mentally prepare better for a whole range of events. There's 1, looking at controlling the controllables. Secondly, get together a good support team to be able to help you, people that you trust. And then lastly, use visualization or imagery in a systematic way to help you achieve your goals much faster. Have a great week, and I look forward to releasing next week's episode where I'm sharing an interview from a high-profile guest with lots of experience in elite professional sport. I'd like to give a big thanks to today's sponsors. Functional Intelligent Training, who are a sports injury clinic located in Gosforth near Newcastle upon Tyne and specialise in athlete development, nurturing future champions, strength and conditioning support and excellent rehabilitation services. Thank you for listening to Demystifying Mental Toughness today. To sign up for tips and advice to help you be the best that you can be, go to www.sport-excellence.co.uk and sign up to the Mental Edge newsletter.